Hi, I still live here. You know the drill. Today we're covering the third installment in the Batman Arkham series, Batman Arkham Origins. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this one's different, and I love it. This was the first game in the series that I fully completed, and it totally has a special place in my heart because of it. Many people think that this game is the worst in the series, and it very well might be, but I want to look at it closely and see what differentiates it from the other games. Before I get into it, I have to say once again that this video is going to be full of my opinions, and it's okay if you disagree, but let's be civil in the comments. Last thing I'll mention before we get into it is the fact that all of the gameplay is taken from the PlayStation 5. We did not play this game on PC, and any of my opinions on controls will be purely for console. Also, we played the game on medium difficulty. You might like to play it on easy or hard, and those are great too, but I wanted to get the best possible idea of what the game is like for the majority of players. And medium fits that. Alright, with that out of the way, grab your blankie, get some snacks, stop by the bathroom, because this is our retrospective on Batman Arkham Origins. So like I mentioned before, this one is a bit different than the others. That's because Origins was made by Warner Bros. Montreal, whereas the others were developed by Rocksteady. This was because Rocksteady knew that they wanted to make 4 games in the series, but they knew that they would take longer to develop the next game than they wanted. They wanted to continue to ride the wave of Arkham City's success, so they got Warner Bros. Montreal to help. Rocksteady gave WB all of their code for City, and told them that they could completely go off the cuff for the story, as long as they didn't step on the toes for the main dev team for the 4th game. So Warner Bros. Decided to make a prequel, with an entirely original story. Because they were under a time crunch, they used much of the same basic code for City, and as a result, the free flow system as well as the stealth and traversal are very similar. I won't really touch on them because they're virtually the exact same. This retrospective is going to focus on the things that this game does really well, such as boss battles and just overall story. Without further ado, let's take a look at the story. On Christmas Eve, Batman hears word that Black Mask has taken Commissioner Gillian Loeb hostage at Blackgate Prison. Batman heads to the facility and indeed finds Black Mask, along with Loeb and one of his enforcers, the hulking killer Croc. Batman follows the group of them through the facility, and they finally come to a gas chamber, where Black Mask frees the prisoner who was up for execution that day, Calendar Man. Black Mask and Croc push the Commissioner into the chamber and turn it on, killing him. The criminals continue through the building and make it to the rooftop, where Black Mask gets into a helicopter that he had waiting for him. Croc chooses to stay behind though, as he senses something is off. The chopper pulls away, and Batman reveals himself to the monster. They have an intense battle on the rooftop, with Batman coming victorious. Just before the police show up, however, Croc hints at a plan that Black Mask has set up for Batman, also mentioning assassins. The GCPD finally show up with the intention of taking both Croc and Batman into custody, but the Dark Knight is able to escape in his Batwing. He heads back to the Batcave and remembers that he has an SD card that he was able to snag from a mysterious drone that was also flying around Blackgate. He puts the card into his computer and finally figures out what Black Mask's plan is.
His name is Killer Croc. He's already behind bars.
Oh, I pity his cellmate.
I don't. Let's see what else is on the drone's hard drive.
Each of them gets one of these envelopes. I need them delivered tonight.
They're all hired killers, the best in the business. Black Mask isn't messing around. Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, former military, subject of a failed medical experiment.
Failed, you say?
Garfield Linz, aka Firefly, burns on 90% of his body. His obsession is going to be his end.
How unlike anyone I know.
Here's a face I don't recognize. Copperhead. Strange. These reports reference a male, not a female.
14 escapes, huh? Well, you won't forget not a... What the...
Floyd Lawton, aka Deadshot. Says here he's an expert sharpshooter.
How on earth?
Suspected of many assassinations. Dangerous, but reckless. Street tough named Lester Baczynski. Calls himself Electrocutioner.
Shocking.
Shiva. Her skill is unmatched.
For this.
Why would he be taking money as a hired killer?
Is that Warden Joseph?
Must be how Black Mask got inside the prison. He uses torture for intimidation and entertainment.
8 assassins after your head. What are you going to do?
I'm going to find out who is operating this drone. Make them tell me what they know. Then I'm going to find Black Mask and put an end to this.
Batman figures out that the drone belongs to Penguin and finds some of his men to interrogate. He figures out the Penguin is currently on his boat in the Gotham Harbor. On his way there, he's intercepted by the Riddler, who reveals that he's working for Black Mask and has taken down all of the communication towers in Gotham City in order to distract Batman and give the assassins an easier shot at taking him out. Finally, he gets to the ship and is found out instantly. He is forced to fight the first of the assassins, the Electrocutioner. He dispatches the killer laughably quick and finds the Penguin. The crime boss reveals that there was a double murder at one of Black Mask's safe houses in Lacey Tower. Suddenly, Batman is ambushed by another one of the assassins, Deathstroke. The two battle, and in an incredibly close affair, Batman comes out on top. Unfortunately, while the Dark Knight was fighting for his life, Penguin was able to escape to his safe room. Batman decides to leave the ship and go investigate Lacey Tower. He makes it to the tower and figures out that the police have identified both bodies in the safe house. Roman Sionis, who is Black Mask by the way, and his girlfriend Tiffany Ambrose. However, after more investigation, Batman is able to figure out that the murders occurred days ago, which should have been impossible as Black Mask was at Blackgate earlier that night. He concludes that the body identified as Roman Sionis could not have been the one who was murdered, and all signs point to Penguin as the killer. Batman learns through investigation of Ambrose's phone that she was scared of someone named the Joker. Batman decides to leave the scene for the GCPD, looking to compare DNA samples to those that are on file. Once he gets there, he overhears Captain James Gordon arguing with his daughter Barbara over whether Batman is a hero or a menace to the city. He takes care of some guards and makes his way to the server room, but he is found out by Barbara, who helps him figure out a way to remotely access the database from his Batcomputer. As he's heading off to put Barbara's plan in motion, he comes across Jim Gordon as he's leaving the elevator. He disarms Jim, but a few other officers enter the room and draw their guns on the Bat. The other officers shoot, but Batman saves Gordon from the gunfire and escapes using a smoke grenade. He gains access to the database and figures out the Joker was indeed planning on killing Sionis, but the mobster had used a double, which the Joker killed. This allowed Sionis to attack the Joker by surprise. Unfortunately for Sionis, the Joker came out on top in the scuffle and made Sionis shoot his own girlfriend before setting the safe house on fire and leaving with Black Mask. Batman figures out that the Joker is planning to use Sionis to bypass security at the Gotham Merchants Bank, which has heavy ties to the mob. He arrives at the bank and finds Black Mask, whom he asks about the Joker. He reveals that he has a hostage, the real Roman Sionis. Black Mask takes off his mask to reveal pale white skin and bright green hair. Joker has been portraying Black Mask all night. Joker finishes loading some money and Sionis into an ambulance and escapes, but not before killing the bank manager with an early version of Joker gas. The Caped Crusader is able to track Joker's vehicle to the steel mill, but only finds Sionis bound and by himself. Batman frees the criminal, but is ambushed by Copperhead, the third assassin he has come into contact with. Copperhead injects him with a toxin that causes him to start hallucinating. He begins to see multiples, but he's able to work with Alfred to synthesize an antidote and defeat Copperhead. Before he leaves though, he finds out from the assassin that Joker is planning a meeting with the others at the Royal Hotel. He arrives to find the meeting underway. Long story short, Joker ends up killing Electrocutioner as punishment for his cocky attitude and his failure to kill the Batman. After he's proved his point, he sends the others off with a warning and tells them to hurry up. Bane chooses to stay behind though, as he feels that the Joker will draw Batman out. He's very right, as the Brute finds Batman hiding in an elevator, outmuscling our hero and bringing him to the Joker. Batman attempts to attack the Joker, but Bane is easily able to put a stop to it, throwing Batman out a window and onto one of the balconies outside of the hotel. The two proceed to fight, with Bane using his venom to physically dominate. Alfred calls in the SWAT team in an attempt to even the fight, but it only causes Bane to flee the rooftop. Batman is able to plant the tracking device on Bane's copter, and the SWAT team shoots rockets at the building, blasting Joker off of the rooftop. While falling to his death, Joker realizes something strange. Batman has jumped after him. The Clown Prince tries to attack Batman in midair, but eventually gets nowhere. He's subdued at the bottom, and Batman manages to get away from the police, but the Joker just can't drop this feeling. Joker is taken to Blackgate Prison, where he's subsequently psychoanalyzed by one Dr. Harleen Quinzel. He relives the point where he became the Joker, a break-in at Ace Chemicals gone bad, while he was under the alias of Red Hood. During the break-in, he was pushed into a vat of chemicals by the Batman, initiating his physical and mental transformation. As he becomes more and more infatuated by the Bat, Harley has the same happen to her, however with the Clown Prince. Batman arrives back at the Batcave, also reliving the reason he became what he is. Alfred breaks him from this memory and tries to convince Bruce to take a break, maybe even stop for the night. Batman denies his request, saying that Bane is still too big a threat to let roam free. Batman catches a police communication that a criminal matching Bane's description was killed, and he decides to go back to the precinct to identify whether or not it's Bane. He heads back and gets to the morgue, finding out it was just another random Venom user. Just as this is happening though, the tracker that he planted on Bane's copter begins sending a signal, showing Batman exactly where Bane's hideout is. He finds the hideout, but Bane is already gone. Unfortunately for the Dark Knight though, he finds evidence that Bane knows his secret identity. He leaves the hideout and warns Alfred to secure himself in the Batcave, as it's not safe anymore. On his way back, Batman learns that Firefly has taken hostages on Pioneer's Bridge in an attempt to draw him out. Batman distracts the assassin with his Batwing and goes underneath the bridge to meet with Gordon. Once there, he warns the captain about bombs that Firefly has planted as well, and he warns Gordon not to send his men in, or else it could be bad. Batman is able to get to and defuse every bomb except one, but he is forced to fight Firefly. He's able to distract the villain while Gordon's team moves in to take out the last bomb. Batman comes out on top against Firefly, and the GCPD take him into custody. Batman and Gordon meet once more, where they both somewhat acknowledge their need for one another, and that it might not be so bad to work together on occasion. Batman heads back to the Batcave, and on his way, he calls Alfred. The call is picked up by Bane, however, who has successfully infiltrated the Batcave and severely injured or potentially even killed Alfred. Batman arrives to find the Batcave on fire and everything in shambles. He manages to find Alfred in the rubble, but gets there just as the butler unfortunately dies. Batman is able to use the electrocutioner's gloves that he picked up earlier to restart his friend's heart, saving Alfred. You had to know he wouldn't die, right? Realizing that his Batman persona is putting the ones he loves at risk, Bruce decides to call it quits and stop fighting crime. Alfred steps up though, telling Bruce that he needs allies to succeed. He needs to let people in. The two overhear on the police radio that the Joker has staged a riot at Blackgate Prison, and Batman agrees to take him down. With Alfred, of course. Once he's at the prison, the Joker reveals his big plan. He's going to make Batman kill someone. He hooks himself up to an electrical chair that is also set to connect to a device in Bane's heart. Each time Bane's heart beats, the chair charges up more, thus meaning that Batman either stops Bane's heart or allows Joker to be electrocuted. Batman is able to stop Bane's heart, turning the electric chair off, but he once again uses the electric gloves to restart Bane's heart, bringing him back to life. Bane comes to and injects himself with a variant of Venom, labeled TN1. This chemical transforms him, far more than Venom ever has. Batman is able to narrowly defeat the monstrous Bane, and a side effect from the TN1 causes Bane to lose his memory of Batman's identity. Our hero strings Bane up for the GCPD to collect, but realizes that Joker escaped during the chaos. As he's leaving Blackgate, he's captured by Killer Croc, who had broken out of his cell. He's saved by Gordon, and the two work together to save Warden Martin Joseph. The three of them find Joker in a nearby chapel, and Batman reveals to the clown that Bane is still alive. The Joker tries to push Batman to kill him, but the Bat resists, giving him a harsh beating instead. Gordon tells Batman that while his daughter may think the Bat is a hero, he still has to take him in. Gordon gets a call on his radio and quickly responds, looking back to find the chapel empty, aside from him and the unconscious Joker. After the story, we hear Jack Ryder talking to Quincy Sharp, elaborating on a proposal to begin reusing the old, dilapidated Arkham Asylum as opposed to Blackgate. We also see Amanda Waller telling Deathstroke about the Suicide Squad. a new task force she's creating. So once again, the story in this game is entirely original. I love the concept of the assassins, even if many of them don't live up to the hype. Characters like Electrocutioner and Copperhead don't live up to their initial introductions, and Deadshot and Shiva don't even show up in the main story. They're relegated to side quests, and pretty shitty ones at that. But Croc, Firefly, Deathstroke, and most importantly Bane, live up to the hype and more. I'm not gonna lie, I was quite disappointed the Joker made a reappearance. I was super intrigued with the idea of Black Mask, and we've already seen Joker played out quite a bit. Batman has a huge rogues gallery, and Black Mask isn't a very well-known character to the average Batman fan. They set him up as this slick criminal mastermind who had the connections and the know-how to completely take over Gotham, but as soon as the Joker was revealed, all of that completely went out the window. To be fair, they did the Joker pretty well once they pivoted in his direction, but it was annoying nonetheless. Going back to the things they did well, I have to say, this is my favorite non-comic portrayal of Bane ever. Most times that Bane shows up in pop culture, he's just another dumb brute. Someone who can crush Batman, but could be outsmarted by a brick. In the comics, the reason why Bane is a threat is because not only is he stronger than Batman, but he's legitimately smarter. He's supposed to have a genius level IQ, but be limited by his addiction. Origins portrays Bane as forever the most dangerous person in the room. By having 3 different boss battles with Bane, with him in different forms, it allows the player to understand that Bane is a multi-threat character. He doesn't need the Venom to break Batman's back, but he keeps going back to it because of his addiction. It's his only real weakness. The last boss battle in particular is just stellar, but I'll get to that in a bit. I love the higher emphasis on detective work, with a completely new system that allows Batman to recreate the events that happened using forensic data. It's a much more interactive system, where instead of just scanning and following a forensic trail, the player has to slowly recreate the scene, and use the new information that comes up during the process to continue moving through. It just gives another layer. I wish it was used more, but I understand not wanting to overload a new system, wanting to keep it fresh. WB Montreal also made an entirely new map. Obviously, there are some holdovers, such as the steel mill and Ace Chemicals, but the city has been reworked into 2 main sections, connected by a single bridge. Having to traverse along the bridge definitely slows things down when going between events, but it's a nice set piece. It works great in the Firefly fight, and to me, that's reason enough for it to be in the game. The Gotham Merchants Bank and the Royal Hotel also offer up some unique and new settings for the story to go through. I like the increased usage of Blackgate in the story as well, as it's referenced quite a bit throughout Arkham Asylum, and it totally makes sense story-wise. I don't have a lot of qualms with the story and the overall setting. The Joker popping up was certainly disappointing, but it didn't end up holding the rest of the story back in my opinion. They created a Gotham that is easily one of my favorites, with incredibly memorable settings. Great job here. I want to take a large chunk of this video to talk about bosses. As you know, if you've watched our other videos, you know that boss fights are a super important part of this series, and they've been inconsistent so far. That trend very much continues in Arkham Origins, as there are some less than spectacular fights, but this game also holds some of the best fights in the entire series. Let's talk about it. Starting off with the worst, let's get it out of the way. Electrocutioner was just bad. And I know that I should give them credit for subverting expectations and playing it risky, but I just think it's disappointing. As I mentioned before, the Shiva and Deadshot fights aren't even a part of the main story, they're side missions, and not very good ones at that. Shiva is a glorified ninja unit with a health bar, and Deadshot is a very plain stealth mission. Missed opportunities for those two. Copperhead is another one that I feel could have been interesting, but it just missed the mark. The whole fight revolves around Batman trying to get an antidote for some toxin that Copperhead injected him with, all while fighting off hallucinations of the assassin. I don't understand why Copperhead wasn't just able to finish him off while Batman was hallucinating. It's not like he was at full strength, and Copperhead is supposed to be one of the most deadly people on the planet. There is virtually no reason not to finish the job right away. It's also never explained what Batman is fighting when he's dealing with the Copperhead hallucinations. In Asylum, they show us that he's fighting inmates, and they show up to him as skeletons, but we never get that in this fight. Is he just punching air? It just reinforces my opinion that Copperhead could have easily killed him. But now we move on to the good, and luckily there is more of it. The first boss fight with Killer Croc is great. It's the ideal intro boss as it requires you to use the mechanics you've learned up to that point in the game, without being overly challenging. It's a chill fight, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It allows the player to dip their toes into boss combat, and it wraps up a great Blackgate portion. Moving on to Deathstroke. Phew. The best way for me to explain it is Batman and Deathstroke are both master combatants, and they go head to head in a classic brawl. The speed in which Deathstroke attacks legitimately creates pressure and requires your timing to be pinpoint perfect. Watching how smooth the animations from both the Bat and the Assassin are truly make you feel badass, as the whole scene is more like a movie than a typical in-game fight. And then Deathstroke brings out his sword, and I was just in awe of the fight choreography. I'm not normally super into that stuff, but this was just so meticulously thought out. The fight even ends in a dope-ass way, as Batman throws Deathstroke's sword at him, just barely missing his head, and the assassin asks, "What are you?" Chills. I think putting this fight near the beginning gives the player a great idea of just how dominant Batman can be, and it makes it even scarier when Bane kicks the shit out of you the first time he sees you. Speaking of Bane, all three of his fights are great. The devs at WB Montreal felt that Bane needed to feel intelligent in combat as well, so they made his AI incredibly advanced compared to other bosses. In the first few fights, he'll occasionally charge you, but he's able to follow your evades, and he can still hit you even after you dive out of the way. Heck, in the third fight, where you have to be stealthy, Bane will check vents and floor grates, which forces you to move around and not just sit stationary. It's one of the first fights in the entire series to actually jump scare me when I went to leave a vent, just to see Bane's ugly face peering in to snatch me. And the best part of all the boss fights? They didn't force the Joker in the final fight. The Assassin storyline allowed lesser-known characters to enjoy the spotlight, and WB Montreal was so scared of messing up players' first impressions of these characters that they put their all to make every boss fight special. And it works, most of the time. Finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Similarities between City and Origins. As I mentioned, tons of code was taken from City to make this game, but the devs kept other mechanics the same too. Riddler trophies are back, just as they have been in all of the other games. Same old, same old. They also reused gadgets such as the freeze grenade, renaming it the glue grenade with the exact same look to it. You even use it the exact same way, as Batman can throw it at water to make a platform for himself. I really do think that this lack of innovation was what hurt this game the most in the eyes of the public. Many view this game as the worst, and this is the only reason that I can justify to myself why. The story is well thought out, and while it sucks that Joker's here, they at least did him well. They decided to go for different voice actors for Joker and Batman, as they wanted the characters to sound younger as well as look younger. Troy Baker did a fine job as the Joker, and I love how gruff Batman sounds in this game. In many ways, Origins feels like a step to the side instead of a step forward for the series, and that's okay. It focuses on parts of these games that have been pushed to the side, the best examples being boss battles. Of course, City had good boss battles, but we don't talk about that game anymore. What I think people are neglecting to remember is that the worst game in a great series can still be a great game. So, to summarize, do I think that it's the worst game in the series? Probably. But that speaks more to the supreme quality of the rest of the games than the lack of quality with this one. It's still an awesome experience, and it gives a great insight to some lesser-known Batman characters. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you so much for watching. That was a retrospective on Batman Arkham Origins.